How accurate is this kind of evidence? A ballistics overview. What is forensic ballistics? Forensic ballistics involves the examination of evidence from firearms that may have been used in a crime. When a bullet is fired from a gun, the gun leaves microscopic marks on the bullet and cartridge case. These marks are like ballistic fingerprints. If investigators recover bullets from a crime scene, forensic examiners can test fire a suspect's gun, then compare the marks on the crime scene bullet to marks on the test-fired bullet. The examiner will then assess how similar the two sets of marks are and determine if the bullets are likely to have been fired from the same gun or different guns. Cartridge cases are compared in the very same way. So, what does the NIST do? For roughly a century, forensic ballistics experts have been comparing bullets and cartridges cases by visually examining them under a split-screen microscope. After comparing the bullets, the examiner can offer an expert opinion as to whether they match but cannot express the strength of the evidence numerically. NIST scientists are developing methods that will allow an examiner to attach an objective, statistically meaningful measure of certainty to their testimony. We also produce the NIST standard bullet and the NIST standard cartridge case. These aren't real bullets or cartridge cases, but precisely manufactured replicas of fired bullets and cartridge cases with known ballistic fingerprints. Crime labs use these standards to calibrate their instruments, which helps ensure that their examinations produce accurate results. How good a match is it? A fired bullet with rifling impressions from the barrel of a gun on the left and a fired cartridge case and a fired bullet on the right, experts can often identify the weapon used based on rifling impressions on the bullet or breech face and firing pin impressions in the primer at the base of the cartridge case. The research: forensic topography and surface metrology, NIST ballistics toolmark database, and statistics for ballistic identification. These are just many of the different research tools that the NIST offers to forensic laboratories all across the US of A. Firearms and Toolmarks. Our goal is to build a scientific infrastructure for objective forensic firearm and toolmark analysis with a rigorous evaluation of uncertainty to quantify the strength of the evidence for experts' testimony in court proceedings. What is firearm and toolmark analysis? When a firearm is fired, it leaves marks on the bullet and the cartridge case. Forensic firearm and toolmark examiners compare these marks to evaluate whether a bullet or a cartridge case recovered at a crime scene was fired by a particular firearm. A similar comparison is performed for marks left by other tools, such as a screwdriver, pry bars, and bolt cutters. When a bullet is fired from a semi-automatic handgun, the gun leaves distinctive markings on the cartridge case. These markings can be used to match the case to the gun from which it was fired. When the trigger is pulled, the firing pin springs forward and makes contact with the primer, igniting the gunpowder and propelling the bullet through the barrel. This contact leaves a small hemispherical mark near the center of the case. As the expanding gas propels the bullet out of the barrel, the case is pushed backward into the breech face. This creates an impression of the breech face on the rear of the case. The backward force also pushes the slide backwards. As this happens, the extractor pulls on the case, leaving a grip impression on the side. As the slide nears the end of its movement, the case makes contact with the ejector, causing the case to flip up and out of the slide. This leaves a small mark on the bottom left of the case. When a bullet is fired from a semi-automatic handgun, the gun leaves distinctive markings on the cartridge case, which can be used to match the case to the gun from which it was fired. These marks are created by 4 parts: the firing pin, the breech face, the extractor, and the ejector. Each part has the potential to leave distinctive microscopic marks on the fired case. When the trigger is pulled, the firing pin springs forward and makes contact with the primer, igniting the gunpowder and propelling the bullet through the barrel. This contact leaves a small hemispherical mark near the center of the case. As the expanding gas propels the bullet out of the barrel, the case is pushed backward into the breech face. This creates an impression of the breech face on the rear of the case. This backward force also pushes the slide backwards. As this happens, the extractor pulls on the case. Leaving a grip impression on the side. As the slide nears the end of its movement, the case makes contact with the ejector, causing the case to flip up and out of the slide. This leaves a small mark on the bottom left of the case. Together, these marks can be used to match a cartridge case to a particular handgun. Why is the National Institute for Science Technology involved in firearms and toolmarks? The comparison of toolmarks is currently a subjective process that relies on the skill and expertise of the examiner. NIST is working with forensic community to augment an examiner's testimony with objective measures for toolmark similarity and the strength of the evidence. Firearm and toolmark analysis are transitioning from the use of comparison microscopes to the acquisition and comparison of 3-dimensional toolmark topography images. This new technology requires standards and procedures to ensure measurement data, interoperability, and traceability. And what is NIST doing? They're developing standards, reference artifacts, and procedures for measurement, quality assurance, and interoperability. They are building research and reference databases of toolmarks for method development and statistical evaluation of the strength of the evidence, developing objective metrics and algorithms for evaluating the similarity of toolmarks, developing statistical models and procedures to quantify the strength of the evidence. 2 new forensic firearm examination standards added to the OSAC Registry of Approved Standards. Forensic experts can often link a bullet or a cartridge case to the gun that fired it based on microscopic marks left on the bullet as it exits the barrel, or on the cartridge case as it is ejected from the firearm. For instance, to test whether a bullet found at a crime scene was fired from a specific gun, experts test fire that gun to produce a second bullet. They then compare the microscopic marks on the pair of bullets to see how similar they are. Examiners usually compare the bullets under a split-screen comparison microscope, rotating and moving them to see if the markings line up, a method that has been in use for more than 100 years. However, researchers have been developing new methods that use 3D surface scanning microscopes to produce 3D models, or virtual copies, of the bullets. Computer algorithms then compare the microscopic features of the 2 virtual bullets to measure how similar they are. 3D methods are not yet widely used in forensic labs, but for labs that wish to implement them, the new standards provide guidance. So who is the Organization of Scientific Area Committees for Forensic Science? OSAC strengthens the nation's use of forensic science by facilitating the development and promoting the use of high-quality, technically sound standards. These standards define minimum requirements, best practices, standard protocols, and other guidance to help ensure that the results of forensic analysis are reliable and reproducible. OSAC was created in 2014 to address a lack of discipline-specific forensic science standards. OSAC fills this gap by drafting proposed standards and sending them to standards developing organizations, which further develop and publish them. OSAC also reviews standards and posts high-quality ones to the OSAC Registry. Inclusion on this registry indicates that a standard is technically sound and that laboratories should consider adopting them. Recent additions to the registry cover DNA mixture interpretation, digital evidence examination, and wildlife forensics. Hundreds more are in the pipeline. OSAC's 475-plus members work in forensic laboratories and other institutions around the country and have expertise in 22 forensic disciplines, as well as scientific research, measurement science, statistics, law, and policy. OSAC drafts and evaluates forensic science standards via a transparent, consensus-based process that allows for participation by all stakeholders. This is a fired bullet on the left and a bullet and cartridge case on the right. Forensic experts can often link a bullet or a cartridge case to the gun that fired it based on microscopic marks left on the bullet as it exits the barrel, or on the cartridge case as it is ejected from the firearm. At NIST, Zhang is developing databases of scanned bullets and cartridge cases that researchers use to study how common or rare different surface markings are on these types of evidence. These databases provide the foundation for accurate match statistics. Other NIST scientists are working on the algorithms that compare bullets and cartridge cases. Lawton, who hopes to start implementing 3D systems at her own lab in Alabama, said that the new standards are timely. We are right at the cusp of this transition, she said. Having these standards available now rather than after labs have already installed new systems will help ensure that people get this right the first time. In the United States, there is no regulatory authority that sets mandatory standards or requirements that crime laboratories must follow. However, many labs choose to voluntarily implement standards on the OSAC Registry to improve their processes and to demonstrate their commitment to quality and accuracy. More standards are in OSAC's registry approval pipeline, including ones for fire and explosion investigations and toxicology. OSAC also recently started drafting new standards for sexual assault examinations. This is a 3D topographic surface map of the base of a fired 9mm bullet. This visualization shows the grooves imparted on the bullet by the barrel of the gun that fired it. These 3D surface maps produce more detailed comparison data than the two-dimensional images that are traditionally used to match bullets. NIST 3D Ballistic Research Database goes live, and the scientists automate key steps in forensic fingerprint analysis. These are two of the breaking news in IST's world. You must always be willing to truly consider evidence that contradicts your beliefs and admit the possibility that you may be wrong. Intelligence isn't knowing everything. It's the ability to challenge everything you know. As we go forward in this case, please keep in mind this is justice for Abby and Libby. This is what is being sought. Please consider, as you read through the evidence and you read through the documents that are coming from the court as well as the lawyers, everything has to be looked at, examined, and carefully thought out about whether or not your biases are flooding your eyesight. And so you are not really examining the evidence with a non-biased opinion. We as human beings all have confirmation bias. All of us. And it's something that we have to work at as human beings. Abby and Libby deserve justice. These investigators have worked 6 long years to bring that about. Instead of being negative about what is happening, let us try to remain positive and confident in what is going on. We do not have all of the evidence. Right now at the Monon High Bridge, they are repairing the bridge. They have taken off the railroad ties and they're laying down a path across the bridge. It no longer looks like the same bridge. It is still the place that 2 beautiful young girls lost their lives on that February afternoon in 2017. It's still the place where the German, Patty, and Williams families know that their girls ceased to be with them forever. Over the next 2 years, more than likely, this is going to be where the rest of Abby and Libby's story unfolds. In this courtroom, or one there like it. We need to remember that everything we say, everything that we do on social media makes a difference. So, as you're reading the news reports and the media reports, please remember that we should not be trying anyone on social media. That is not what we should be doing. Discussing evidence, discussing circumstantial evidence and direct evidence is one thing. But convicting Richard Allen before he's had his day in court is not something that will be beneficial to this case, whether it's being done by the prosecution or whether it's being done by the defense. Now that there's a gag order in place, we also need to keep ourselves in check as we continue to report and tell their story, because how we tell their story matters. Thanks everyone for watching Kristin Behind the Crime Door. I certainly appreciate each and every one of you. Please like, subscribe, and share my video, and make sure that you ring the bell so that you get notified the next time I drop a video. Thank you again for watching.